Hello, second grade stars. Here I am with another installment of Edward Tulane. I'm going to read tonight to you chapter 24 and chapter 25. Last we left off, Edward was fixed by the doll maker, and now we were just waiting to see what was going to happen next. I am going to start on chapter 24, where there is a picture of someone entering the shop where the dolls are fixed. And it looks to me like it's Bryce. Now remember, Bryce gave Edward to the doll mender to fix Edward. And the deal was that Bryce had to give him to him completely and never get him back. So let's continue and see where we're at. And so Edward Tulane was mended, put together again, cleaned and polished, dressed in an elegant suit and placed on a high shelf for display. From this shelf, Edward could see the whole shop, Lucius Clark's workbench and the windows to the outside world and the door that the customers used to enter and leave. From this shelf, Edward saw Bryce open the door one day and stand in the threshold. So the threshold is another word for doorway. The silver harmonica was in his left hand, flashing brilliantly in the sunlight flooding in through the windows. "Young sir," said Lucius, "I'm afraid that we made a deal." Here's a picture. Oh, sorry, guys. There's Lucius Clark, there's Bryce, and the caption says, "You may look and then you must go and not come back." Let's see. "Can I see him?" said Bryce. He wiped his hand across his nose, and the gesture filled Edward with a terrible feeling of love and loss. "I just want to look at him." Lucius Clark sighed. "You may look," he said. "You may look, and then you must go and not come back. I cannot have you in my shop every day, mooning over what you have lost." "Yes, sir," said Bryce. Lucius sighed again. He got up from his workbench, and he went to Edward's shelf, and he picked him up and held him so Bryce could see him. "Hey, Jangles," said Bryce, "you look better. The last time I seen you, you looked terrible. Your head was busted in, and—" "He is put together again," said Lucius, "as I promised you he would be." Bryce nodded. He wiped his hand across his nose. "Can I hold him?" he asked. "No," said Lucius. Bryce nodded again. "Tell him goodbye," said Lucius Clark. "He is repaired. He has been saved. Now you must tell him goodbye." "Goodbye," said Bryce. "Don't go," thought Edward. "I won't be able to bear it if you go." "And now you must leave," said Lucius Clark. "Yes, sir," said Bryce, but he stood without moving, looking at Edward. "Go," said Lucius Clark. "Just go." "Please," thought Edward, "don't go." Bryce turned. He walked through the door of the doll mender's shop. The door closed, and the bell tinkled again, and Edward was alone. We are now on chapter 25. So we definitely can tell at this point that Edward has feelings, because in the very beginning, it didn't matter to him whether Abilene looked at him or not. And now he so desperately wanted to Bryce to stay. He's having emotions that are coming right from his heart. Let's see what happens next. Technically, of course, he was not alone. Lucius Clark was filled with dolls. His shop was filled with dolls. Lady dolls and baby dolls. Dolls with eyes that opened and dolls with eyes that had painted on. Dolls dressed as queens and dolls wearing sailor suits. Edward had never cared for dolls. He found them to be annoying and self-centered, meaning full of themselves, twittery and vain. This opinion was immediately reinforced by his first shelf mate, a china doll with green glass eyes and red lips and dark brown hair. She was wearing a green satin dress that fell to her knees. "What are you?" she said when Edward was placed on the shelf next to her. "I am a rabbit," said Edward. The doll let out a small squeak. "Ugh, you're in the wrong place. This is a shop for dolls, not rabbits." Edward said nothing. "Shoo," said the doll. "I would love to shoo," said Edward, "but it is obvious that I cannot." After a long silence, the doll said, "I hope you don't think anyone's going to buy you." Again, Edward said nothing. "The people who come in here want dolls, not rabbits. They want baby dolls or elegant dolls, such as myself. Dolls with pretty dresses, dolls with eyes that open and close. I have no interest in being purchased," said Edward. The dog gasped. You don't want someone to buy you? You don't want to be owned by a little girl who loves you? Sarah Ruth, Abilene. Their names went through Edward's head like notes of a sad, sweet song. I wonder why a sad, sweet song. Maybe his heart is feeling sad for missing them. I have already been loved, said Edward. I've been loved by a girl named Abilene. I've been loved by a fisherman and his wife, and a hobo and his dog. I've been loved by a boy who played the harmonica and by a girl who died. Don't talk to me about love. I have known love. This impassioned speech shut up Edward's shelfmate for a considerable amount of time. Well, she said at last, still, my point is that no one's ever going to buy you. They did not speak to each other again. The doll was sold 2 weeks later to a grandmother who was purchasing it for her grandchild. Yes, she said to Lucius Clark, that one right there, the one with the green dress. She's quite lovely. Yes, said Lucius, she is, isn't she? And he plucked the doll from the shelf. Goodbye and good riddance, thought Edward. The spot next to the rabbit stayed vacant for some time. Day after day, the door to the shop opened and closed, letting in early morning sun or late afternoon light, lifting the hearts of the dolls inside, all of them thinking when the door swung wide open this time, the person entering the shop would be the one who wanted them. Edward was the lone contrarian. So contrarian comes from the word contrary. When you're contrary to something, it means you're against it. So he was the only one that didn't feel this way. He prided himself on not hoping, on not allowing his heart to lift inside of him. He prided himself on keeping his heart silent, immobile, closed tight. I am done with hope, Edward Tulane said. And then one day at dusk, right before he closed the shop, Lucius Clark placed another doll on the shelf next to Edward. I'm going to stop right there. We'll leave off and we'll begin on chapter 26 next time. I hope you have a lovely evening. Maybe you can tell your moms and dads about the change Edward's had from the very beginning when he was so cold-hearted and he didn't show Abilene the love that he can show now. And think about how he got to be able to show that love. Sometimes the very hardest thing in life is to love someone, because when you love someone, you have to trust them and you have to let them love you. Oh well, enough for tonight. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great sleep. See ya. Bye.